How's it going, guys? Vaibhav here and welcome back to another video. Now this one is going to be about the Lenovo Legion Phone Duel. So this is their first ever gaming smartphone and I've got the press release on with me. Now I do feel like this is doing some things right, but it's also doing some things that I'm a bit skeptical about, and that's exactly what I want to go over in this video. Talk about this smartphone, give you guys my first thoughts and impressions, and also give you guys or convey the excitement that this phone is actually coming to the Middle Eastern market. So if I'm lucky, I'm actually going to be able to get my hands on this smartphone and probably give you guys a hands-on look or a first impression that way, but that's obviously if things go the right manner. Now, in terms of the specifications of the smartphone, the only thing that you need to know about it is the fact that it is a true gaming smartphone. It's got RGB lighting all over it. It's pretty much a gaming smartphone design if you look at what you see on screen. This is coming directly from the Lenovo website, so you can go ahead and check it out as well in the description. But let's go ahead and actually dissect the specifications and give you guys my thoughts on basically this form factor of a smartphone. So I don't think this is a smartphone in a nutshell. I do think it's more of a console because it's intended to be used in the landscape format, and that's one of the first things that this press release highlights. This is meant to be used in the horizontal mode, and they've tailored the Android 10 / their Lenovo UI to be able to take advantage of that horizontal form factor. And we'll get to why it's tailored to a horizontal form factor, but let's actually get into the specifications of the smartphone. So the first thing that the press release mentions is that it supports 5G, and that's obviously a given considering that this phone comes with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 Plus processor clocked at 3.09 GHz. So this is pretty much the fastest and the latest end processor that you can get on any smartphone. It's probably coming to flagships in the next couple of months as well, but I think this is one of the first phones to rock it, and that's why Lenovo is proudly showing off. Now, as far as other specifications go, I think it comes in either a 16GB of RAM LPDDR5 memory or 12GB depending on your preference, and I think also depending on the region where this phone is being sold, and up to 512GB of UFS 3.1 storage. So pretty feature packed when it comes to all the things that you need for gaming. Now, as far as the display of this thing goes, it's a 6.65-inch full HD AMOLED panel. So you're gonna get good amount of colors, you're gonna get good color reproduction, and it's a 144Hz refresh rate panel alongside a 240Hz touch sampling rate. What does that all mean? It means everything that you do on your screen is going to flow extremely smoothly, and whatever you interact with is also going to be pretty instant. 240Hz touch sampling is really fast, and it's pretty ideal for gaming, and this phone is exactly meant to do that. Now, in terms of interactivity, before we get into one of the coolest features or two of the coolest features about this smartphone, I do want to talk about all of this ultrasonic trigger buttons and the dual vibration engines that this phone has going for it. So off to the shoulder of the smartphone, you get two buttons which can help you do things like rewind footage if you've missed a certain shot that you want to record while you're gaming, and basically interact with games using shoulder buttons. All of that is pretty cool to have, but this also has a lot to do with how these haptic motors have been programmed on the smartphone, and according to Lenovo, it's going to give you a very immersive experience. It's going to give you an experience that no other smartphone can deliver. Now, as far as my usage is concerned, I've only used flagship smartphones in the past couple of years. Nothing comes close to a gaming smartphone over my usage in the past 2 or 3 years even, so I'm really excited to see how this sort of differentiates to typical haptic feedback when you play games on your typical flagship smartphone. So that's something I want to try out when I do get my hands on this smartphone. As I said, it's a landscape phone at the end of the day, and that brings me to one of the coolest features about the smartphone, which is the battery. So on the smartphone, we've got two batteries. It's a 2500 mAh battery on the left and right side of the phone, and because it's split up into two components, it helps the phone stay cool while charging. So that's a pretty great implementation, and as far as the charging speed goes, it goes up to 90 watts. So that's extremely fast, and according to Lenovo, it charges these batteries up to 50% in just 10 minutes and up to full 100% in just 30 minutes. Now, as you can see from this design, you've also got two Type-C USB ports, nothing on the port selection apart from the Type-C USB port, so no 3.5mm headphone jack, but you do get stereo speakers, which I'll get to in just a bit. Now, these sort of configuration for the Type-C USB ports help you with gaming. So if you're gaming in landscape mode, you can easily plug in the phone to an outlet, keep it charging without having to, move your hands around and accommodate for the side charger from the sideward input. So that's obviously a nice addition to have on this Lenovo gaming smartphone. You've also got stereo speakers. So because it doesn't come with a 3.5mm headphone jack, Lenovo wants to go all out with speakers tuned by Dirac audio. So it's going to give you a surprising 3D stereo sound effect. Again, I cannot comment on this because I don't have the phone with me, but it will be interesting to see how much of a difference this makes over, let's say, your typical flagship smartphone. That's something I'm really excited and looking forward to trying out, because what happens with all of these gaming smartphones is that even though these have all the internals of, let's say, a flagship smartphone, more so on the Android side, you don't get the games that actually take advantage of the hardware. So 144Hz refresh rate panel, not many games are going to be able to take advantage of that refresh rate when it comes to performance. So for example, Fortnite had the exclusive rights over the OnePlus 8 and the 8 Pro running at 90 FPS. But even though, let's say, the Galaxy S20 Ultra had exactly the same specifications, if not even higher, it couldn't run the game at 90 FPS. So gaming smartphones, especially for the Android side of the world, comes more down to how Lenovo approaches these gaming companies and basically encourages them to make games that are tailor-made for these smartphones. So while the smartphones are starting to pick up, it's going to be a few years down the line from now to actually see all of these games take advantage of these peripherals or all of this hardware. Again, there's a lot of emphasis on vibration technology, haptic motors, as well as cooling technology. So this thing uses a liquid cooling solution, and it uses copper tubing to actually get basically the cooling experience. But again, these are things that you can only try and comment on once you actually get the phone in hand. Something that's really cool, the other aspect of the smartphone, is the pop-up selfie camera. So on the side of the phone, there is a 20 megapixel camera. So this is how the phone looks from the back. It's got full RGB LED, as I mentioned, but if we actually go through some of these images, you'll be able to note that the phone has a pop-up selfie camera on the front. It's a 20 megapixel selfie camera, and what's unique about this one is that it can actually overlay your face while you're live streaming or while you're recording any sort of content on your smartphone. So it takes advantage of Lenovo software to do that, which is pretty cool. And that's something I mentioned when I was talking about the leaks for the smartphone. And I'm glad to see that Lenovo is finally focusing on this esports module. And for those people who are really into those MMORPG titles where a lot of power is required for these games, it's going to come in handy. And for those who live stream or maybe have a YouTube channel or a Twitch channel where they primarily do this kind of thing, it's going to come in handy. Aside from that 20 megapixel camera on the front or the side, it's also going to come with two separate cameras on the back of the smartphone. So it's a 64 megapixel image sensor on the back. There's no optical image stabilization, so this isn't a high-end sensor at the end of the day, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide angle camera. But to be honest, I don't think there's an emphasis on camera technology when it comes to this smartphone. If you want more information about the specifications of the phone, they're right on screen. So this basically gives you an overview of what this phone is capable of. As I said, once again, Android 10 and Lenovo's OS ZUI 12 is what they want to call it. So it's going to be interesting to see what sort of optimizations come with this smartphone when it comes to, recording technologies, things like compatibility with maybe an OBS live streaming software. All of that is something that I'm really looking forward to, but I'm also looking forward to how Lenovo approaches the gaming title aspect of this, because at the end of the day, Android is filled with gaming titles that don't really take advantage of all of this hardware. And maybe in the future, when games do come out, there might be exclusive partnerships with certain phones, probably like this one, that take advantage of the hardware in full and give users that ultimate gaming experience which I still think is lacking, especially on the Android side of the world. Now, something to keep in mind also is that in some regions you're only going to get a 65-watt charger. In other regions you might get the 90-watt charger. Some other miscellaneous things include video recording at 4K Ultra HD. I think most of these other specifications just come down to nailing the specification sheet, but when it comes to real-world performance, they may not be up there with the likes of the other flagships. As I mentioned, I want to get my hands on this smartphone because according to Lenovo, it's going to be not only available in China as the Lenovo Legion Phone Pro, but it's also going to be available in other markets including Asia Pacific, Europe, as well as the Middle East and Africa and Latin America. But it's all coming later. We don't know exactly when this will come, so I probably have to reach out to a PR team or a PR contact that I hope I have and see what surfaces. But those were my thoughts on the Lenovo Legion Phone Duel. I feel like it's a good step for gaming smartphones, but if the games aren't there to truly take advantage of all of this hardware, it's going to go to waste. So the next 1 or 2 years is going to be interesting when it comes to how companies merge or companies collaborate when it comes to titles, and hopefully by the time the next version of the smartphone comes out, this will be one of the staples for a gaming smartphone. I do feel like the landscape interface really helps with this being a gaming smartphone, and that's a good job on Lenovo's part. They didn't really market it as a traditional smartphone. They've marketed it as more of a console slash smartphone that can also do an amazing job with photography or an amazing job with gaming. So that's pretty cool. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. There's nothing on the price of the smartphone just yet, but if I was to guess on a price, especially in China, I'd say around the $599 to the $699 mark. That could be the price tag of this smartphone. Again, all of that could change and regionally prices could differ. So thanks for watching this one. This was Vaibhav and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.